At TPA, the student teacher is instructing her students on how to make inferences from a text.
On. Alright, okay, so before I begin, what should I do when I want to make an inference? What should I do when I want to make an inference? We've been talking about inferencing for these past few days here, so.
Several things to notate here. First, the camera angle. First is on her completely, and then it zooms out to show the entire classroom. Also, it's important to notice the dynamic and how the student teacher is placed in relation to the students. The students are on the floor and she is on a chair. However, she is still considered inside of the group. It makes it more comfortable.
We can remember.
Another thing that she does here is she poses a question and she asks it twice, and she also gives time for other students to formulate their responses and raise their hands. She doesn't just pick on the first student who has their hands up.
Aiden? Aiden, please, here. Oh, you're close. He said he started his sentence with con.
It's important to notice how, although this particular student's response is not entirely correct, she still validates it, and she now gives other students the opportunity to refine his response. And also, the audio is not too good when it comes to being able to hear the students' responses, so she does take the time to repeat what they say.
All right, Anisha, can you help him out? Oh, looking at key details, yep. Okay, Andrew? Making a conclusion, okay? So, and did you have something to add, Elena? Yes, pointing out big things, yes. Okay.
Here, she allows the student, Elena, the opportunity to say her response. She doesn't disregard the fact that she's the only one with her hands up.
Anisha said key details, and Aiden and Andrew said making conclusions, okay? So those are the two things that we've been focusing on. You know, you want to look into, when we looked at those pictures, you want to look into what details make this picture stand out. What details tell me what's going on about this picture? And then with that, you make a conclusion about what the picture was about. Well, today we're going to do the same thing, except we're going to be inferring now with actual reading. We're going to be
here the student teacher basically recaps on what they've been learning when it comes to inferring with pictures, and now she's making it relatable to the lesson for today, which is inferring a text.
Inferring with text. All right, so let's look up here. So inferring involves reading between the lines. Who can tell me what reading between the lines means? You guys remember what reading between the lines means, or what that phrase is? You can go ahead and take a guess too if you think you know or you've heard of it. What do you think it means? What? Sammy? Okay, so you're finding key details, yep.
Notice how she picks on the student whose hand was up first and who was more eager and willing to respond to the answer. She didn't choose the student whose hand was not up.
Along the lines of inferring, okay, because inferring, the idea is we're reading between the lines. Paige? Ooh. All right, maybe. So looking at the text and saying, what does this mean, or what's the next thing going to be about? Anisha? Yep, so that's a part of making key details. So reading.
Important to also notice that when she picks on a student, she calls them by name. This makes them feel like a person, not just another student, not just another number, but someone with an answer whose opinion and voice is valid.
Between the lines, okay, this is what it means. It's pretty much being able to read something, pull out those details and those clues to make a conclusion or to decide what the author not necessarily is stating. So remember yesterday when we had the three people come up here and make an action, and I asked you guys, why do you guys think they chose that action? And some of you guys were like, maybe because Lois is gonna go and, or maybe he's upset or something. What else did we say? We said maybe Lois is skiing. Oh yeah, maybe he's skiing because he had his arms like this.
Two things she does here. One, she takes her students' responses and she validates them and then she refines them and then she also includes them in her overall definition. Also, she references what they learned in previous classes.
So reading between the lines is kind of saying, oh, I wonder why he's doing that. Or when you read a book, you're going to say, the author didn't tell me that this is happening. This is what I'm going to infer. Based on the clues that the author gives me, I'm going to say, maybe this is happening. I'm going to infer that this is going on, okay? So that's what reading in between the lines means. Today, our goal is going to transition from those photos and transition inferring those photos to inferring about the text we read. So, yeah.
She establishes for the students here what they're going to be learning about for today's lesson and how it can relate to the previous lessons as well.
Today, we did something really similar to this, okay? So yesterday we did what I see plus what I know equals I infer. But instead of what I see, we're going to do what I read plus what I know equals I infer, all right?
Important to notice here that she uses a similar formula, one that helped them with inferring pictures and will also help them to infer text.
That on the first day, a few days ago, we kind of did some pictures, picking out details, and we also did a paragraph. We're going to do that today, but just with the paragraphs. So, I'm going to show you guys some examples. We're going to be using these texts to make inferences. The author is not necessarily telling us what's going on, so we're going to make inferences about what's happening, or maybe what happened to the character. Alright, give me a thumbs up if you understand. Give me a thumbs down if it's still kind of fuzzy for you. Alright.
Here she tries to establish a good overall understanding of what the students, or how the students rather, are understanding the lesson so far.
Maybes, I see some thumbs up, some thumbs down. That's okay. If you have a thumbs down, hopefully when I show you guys how to do some inferring with the paragraphs, Sandra, you listen? When I show you guys how I'm going to infer with the paragraphs, hopefully you guys will be able to do that too, okay, later today. So, let's look at this, okay? I have this little prompt down here. So that's just to help me remind myself, okay, what am I looking for? So here is a paragraph. I'm going to read it. It says, Turner almost wished that he hadn't listened to the radio. He went to the closet and grabbed his umbrella. He would feel silly carrying it to the bus stop on such a sunny morning. So what do I read? I'm going to circle some key details. So what I saw was he listened to the radio. Okay. He grabbed his umbrella. Okay. And he felt silly carrying it to the bus stop.
Here it's important to notice how, while her attention is on the screen, so are all of her other students. Also, the first example she does on her own for them.
And it's a sunny morning. Okay? So, those are the key details that I circled, because that's what I'm getting from this paragraph. That's the main idea that I'm getting. Those are the main points that I see from the paragraph. Now I'm going to look at what do I know about these things, about what just happened. Well, he listened to the radio and he's going to go grab his umbrella and he feels silly carrying it around on this sunny morning. Based on what I know, okay, when I'm going to go and grab my umbrella, after I listen to the radio, sometimes the radio gives you a news forecast.
It's important to notice here how the camera zooms in on her because she's no longer asking questions. This is her example, and she's basically showing the students how she got to her conclusion.
I'm going to go and grab my umbrella after I've listened to the news forecast. That probably means that it's going to rain later. Maybe it's not raining right now because it's sunny, but it's probably going to rain later, so I have to carry that with me. Boys, can you please put your hands to yourself? Thank you.
This is the second time that she reprimands a student, and both times she wasn't harsh or rude or condescending, and she just went straight back into the lesson.
So I'm going to I infer that it's probably going to rain later, and that's why he grabbed his umbrella. So I infer that it's going to rain later, and that's why he grabbed his umbrella. Let's try another one. All right, same idea. We've got the passage here. I've got my little guide at the bottom to help me. It says, James went to the park to ride his bike. He fell off his bike and hurt himself. Immediately, he was sent to the hospital. When he was released, he went home with a cast on his arm. What kind of key details can I pick from this passage? What kind of key details can I pick from this passage?
Again, here she waits for a response until every student has their hand up. And now, in this example, she's incorporating them and giving them the opportunity to figure out what the key details are.
Have a look. Cast on his arm. He's got a cast on his arm. What else can I pick out from this paragraph? Key details. Timmer. Hospital. He went to the hospital. And let me take one more. Zachary H. Bike. He had his bike with him. All right. So those are some really good key details that we drew out from this. So he fell off his bike. He went to the hospital, and he came out with a cast on his arm. What we read was that stuff. Now we want to add it to what do we know about that? What do we know about these things that I underlined? What do we know? What do I know? What do you know about things that we have just underlined? Because it doesn't.
Notice how the camera now zooms out while the students are given a chance to respond.
Really tell us what exactly happened. It just gives us some hints and some clues. Elena? Okay, so that's what you know, or is that what you infer? Okay, so what do you know? What led you to that?
Because it says he fell off his bike and hurt himself, but it didn't say that he broke his arm.
Here she has the student refine her own response. She doesn't do it for her.
Okay, so Elena said she's going to infer that he probably broke his arm. It doesn't tell you that he broke his arm, but it says, oh, he came out of the hospital with a cast on his arm. Any other inferences or any ideas on how you can connect what you just read with what you know? Michelle?
That usually when you fall off the bike, you get scratches, and if you go on like something and you fall down, you might get
Okay, so Michelle says that usually when you fall off your bike, you might get a few scratches or a few bumps on yourself. So that's what she tells me that she knows about riding your bike and when you fall off. What else do you know? Andrew?
That he fell on his arm.
That he probably fell on his arm. How do you know that though? Yep, so then it tells us, okay? So what did we read? We saw that there was a bike involved, that he went to the hospital, and then he came out with a cast on his arm. It doesn't tell us what part on his body actually got hurt. But what we know from what we just read is that usually when you fall off, you're going to get a few scratches, maybe a few bumps. So that way we can infer and say that, hey, I infer that he probably broke his arm when he fell off his bike. Does that sound like a decent inference that we can make about this passage? Yeah, I don't know. I'm feeling like you guys don't really understand.
Here, the student teacher tries to get a good understanding of where the students are in their understanding of how to infer a text.